live update with the forecast of what we can expect for tonight, but also looking ahead into this weekend and early next week, as we're likely going to continue to see active weather. But how could that impact your weekend plans? Like I said, I'll let you know coming up here in just a few minutes. Give me about 30 seconds to a minute, get everything working here behind the scenes. In the meantime, I'll show you those conditions across the area. For most of western Montana, it is quiet out there. Like I said, for the majority of the region, it's pretty quiet this afternoon. But for others, we are still dealing with those showers and thunderstorms. And like I said, we'll take a look at radar here in just a minute, show you where some of those greatest impacts, at least at this moment, are ongoing and where they could be heading over the next few hours. So I will be ready here in about 20 seconds or so. Everything seems to be working here behind the scenes. But overall, it's a pretty pleasant evening. We've got those temperatures for most locations in the 70s at this hour. So for all things considered, temperatures just a little bit above average, but overall mild across the area. All right, that's working, and I think we're working here. So with that, I would say let's get started with this update. So we've had a trough of low pressure overhead for really this entire week. We've had it just a little off to our west. It's gradually shifted further and further east, and as of yesterday and today, we've had this more squarely over the region. You can see that here on our satellite loop, our water vapor loop. You can see a lot of this moisture, all of these whites and blues, and that general spin. Now, as I zoom out, there is one thing that's a little bit interesting with this trough. It's starting to lose a little bit of its definition. Yesterday, if you were watching, we had this extending all the way down here into the southwest, and it is still there. You can still see that shape. But notice how the spin isn't quite as consolidated like it was yesterday, roughly in this zone. Now you're having two pieces of energy. The first one that's diving down into parts of Nevada, California, and eventually over into the Four Corners region. You see a lot of this thunderstorm activity down here into parts of northern Mexico, southwest New Mexico, even into Colorado. That's all associated with the southern spoke of energy. The northern one is more centered right over western Montana, and this is why we're getting some of that diffuse thunderstorm activity across the region. And because of that diffusion in the energy, we're seeing a little bit less in the way of coverage as compared to what we're seeing yesterday evening at this time, leading to some pretty nice views out there. So just a little reminder, if you happen to get a pretty nice picture of the sunset this evening, feel free to share those with us at nbcmontana.com/chime in. Now, as for what we're seeing on radar, I will loop this once or twice and give you the sense. You can see that spin in the atmosphere from that northern lobe of low pressure. So the activity up into northwest Montana, up here into Glacier National Park, Kalispell, is moving more of a north to south, maybe even southwesterly direction. But you notice some of these showers out here towards Dillon, Ennis, Bozeman. Those are moving more off to the north and east. They are a little bit weaker, but that spin located roughly in this zone, closer to Butte. So you have that push up to the north on the east side of it, that downward or southward motion as we get onto the west side of it. So I'm going to start down here in southwest Montana, very spotty on the shower activity at this time. A few of these close to Hebgen Lake, West Yellowstone, not seeing any lightning with that. Same thing with those showers up towards Gardner. We do start to get a little bit of lightning here into the Pioneer Mountains, as well as areas east of there and north of Dillon on I-15, likely, at least right now, the strongest cell into southwest Montana here west of Twin Bridges and the Sheridan area, where we have had a few lightning strikes. This particular one, and this is right on that low pressure system, is moving off to the north and east. So that low centered a little bit further up here to the north and west. And maybe even a little bit further over here closer to the Sapphire Mountains, Darby areas. You can see this cluster of thunderstorms here, while that's still moving a little bit more off to the north. So it's roughly in this zone where we're seeing that. But overall, some brief moderate to heavy rainfall in some of these cores that you're seeing here in southwest Montana, a couple of lightning strikes there. These are stretching a little further north up into the Sapphire Mountains, areas closer here to Clinton, down towards Rock Creek, and then further south down the spine of the Sapphire Mountains, right here where Skalkahoe passes. This is one area we'll have to keep a close eye on, at least for the potential of some heavy rainfall over the burn scars of the railroad and daily fires. Could deal with some issues with minor flooding, debris flows if we get enough heavy rain right on top of that region. Now, as we lift a little further north, as you can see, much of west central and a decent chunk of northwest Montana is pretty quiet. We've seen dry air move in, but then we get into this cluster of thunderstorms, and I do want to check one thing because that's a pretty impressive little cluster. Not seeing, I was wondering if we had a special weather statement out for that particular storm. I would say it's right on the cusp of one of those. This is coming from the same batch of thunderstorms that was moving through Glacier National Park. If you're watching our 6 o'clock broadcast at the very start, I showed a picture, or at least a video, a still image from a video, from the Lake McDonald camera at Glacier National Park, and it was roughly about this point where this storm is sitting here. This is a little bit, let's see, it was right about this point, and it was moving in towards Apgar, moving through the North Fork part of Glacier National Park. That particular cell started to weaken, but it triggered off more thunderstorms over here towards Lake McDonald, Saya Bend, going up into going to the Sun Road, and then up into Logan Pass, but even Sperry Chalets. We've seen a fair amount of lightning, and this is stretching further down to the south, down in the directions of Nyack, Pinnacle, Essex, as these storms have continued to develop, and we've seen a few of those continue to expand in coverage. So watch this as it makes this turn. Moving, you see this cluster here, moving south, and I'll actually slide this out so we get back into the center here. This cluster here, slowly working its way south, but watch how this one develops and starts to turn to the southwest. That is important because this could actually bring Kalispell into play with these thunderstorms as they're moving in. So we're seeing this push of air to the southwest off of that cluster of thunderstorms initially. So it wouldn't surprise me that we have the one storm closer to Whitefish that is intensifying, but we also have this one right over Hungry Horse Reservoir, and then where the dam is, that this slides further off to the southwest. So places like Creston, you're in line for this, maybe even as far south as Big Fork, you're going to be in line for these thunderstorms. We'll see how far of a westward push that we get out of this, and if it makes it all the way into Kalispell. Now, while we're looking at this radar image, I do want to take a look at something, and this, if you can give me just a minute or so, I'm going to turn the camera around from our Sportsman Ski House weather camera in Kalispell, because that should give us a pretty good view of this storm, and I'm just more curious just to see what it looks like from Kalispell as it's rolling down off the mountains. So let me turn that camera, and I will pull it up here in a second. I'm going to spin this around really quick as I get into some of the graphics, just to see what specifically we might be looking at. So let me spin this back around, and you'll get to see this view with me in real time. So spinning the camera, we're looking south into Kalispell now, looking more to the south and east, and now we're looking over into the mountains to the east side of the valley, and really that is your view. You're not seeing not quite seeing as much in the way of, I'll say, towering cumulus clouds, but you can see a lot of the rain out in the distance. So I am just going to keep this oops, that was a little further than I wanted to, but that'll work. This is pointing us off kind of to the east-northeast. One other unique feature here, you see these ridges in the clouds. Essentially, we've got a shelf cloud that's taking, at least that's trying to take shape as that wind is all pushing outward, but it's pushing out towards us in this direction. So that might be an interesting view over the next little bit. I'm going to see if I can zoom that out just a hair. There we go. We are getting a fair bit of the roof of Sportsman Ski House, but in general, that's the look. This is going to be kind of moving off to the southeast right at this camera. So that's what we're looking at right now with that storm visually. Going back into radar, here's what that storm is looking like on radar itself. And when you start seeing this white, would not surprise me if we're dealing with a little bit of small hail at least. Probably P to maybe dime size. If we do get that special weather statement out for it, we could be seeing hail maybe upwards to about penny size, half inch size. But that's something we'll be keeping a close eye on. And actually, now that I say that, literally 10 seconds ago, this is just coming out. So this is, let me pull this up. I'll bring it back here in just a second. We now have that special weather statement that I was thinking could come out for this storm. This does include Evergreen, Kalispell, the LaSalle community. It does include Columbia Falls, so I think the majority of this energy, the storm, is going to track to your south, but you are still in this special weather statement polygon until 7:45. But the way that this is tracking will likely bring this into places that we've mentioned before. Creston, back down here towards Kalispell, Evergreen, the Highway 206 corridor, US 2, and then the Highway 35 corridor there between Creston itself and Kalispell. But even further than that, we're going to be seeing this moving into places down here towards Summers, the north side of Flathead Lake likely as well. And that is only from this individual storm. There's stuff further off to the south. This will be the cells that impact parts of the northern Sealy Swan Valley, especially over here as we get into Ferndale, Big Fork, where we see more of this. So yeah, Ferndale, Big Fork, just outside of the special weather statement. But let me get more information on this, because again, this is all kind of happening right now. As for this storm, we are looking at the special weather statement through 7:45 p.m. Heavy rainfall, small hail, winds in excess of 30 miles per hour are expected. So some gusty winds, I think, will probably be our biggest concern. But this, unfortunately, will likely lead to, as long as it keeps tracking to the south and west, likely impacting some high school football games. I believe there is a game at Flathead High this afternoon. So, could, again, dealing with some issues. I believe Columbia Falls is at home too. So, for all of the games here in the Flathead Valley, unfortunately, this storm has some plans for you. And that is the strongest one in our area. So we'll come back to this here in a minute, but for folks, again, Columbia Falls, Hungry Horse, Creston, Kalispell, Evergreen, now's a good time to get indoors as this storm is approaching your area. Whitefish even, we've got those, that thunderstorm that's really starting to blossom as well. So certainly keep an eye on that. And if you have friends here on the north side of Flathead Lake that may be out on the lake, or even on the river right here just outside of Big Fork, give them a heads up. Let them know that this is kind of coming their way, and if they can get off the lake, that would be most beneficial. Get into a sturdy structure, even in a situation like this. I was talking to earlier with that storm and glacier. I know there's a lot of people hiking. If you can even get in a vehicle with a storm like this, it's a great place to be, at least in this particular situation. Gets you away from the lightning, gets you away from the hail. So, like I said, we'll come back to this here in just a moment. I just want to keep going on with the rest of this update. Jumping into Future Tracker, it's done a pretty good job picking up at least the majority of this moisture up here into northwest Montana, really on a line from Lookout Pass, Thompson Falls, up to the Flathead Valley into Glacier National Park. Once we get beyond sunset, we'll see those showers and storms really start to taper off. I think by 10, 11 o'clock this evening. Just a few light showers, primarily northwest and in southwest Montana. And that'll leave us with a pretty quiet night, though again, a few showers may linger over towards Bozeman, mostly due to that low pressure system further off to the east over towards Billings, Miles City, where we're going to see a little bit higher coverage of those showers overnight. I think for most of Saturday, or at least the first half of Saturday, we start off quiet. We could be dealing with some patchy fog in our valleys, especially those that get a decent amount of rainfall tonight, but that may have seen a decent amount of rainfall from yesterday as well. So some reduced visibility can't be ruled out in our valleys across the region for the morning hours. By the early afternoon, that fog should well have burned off, and we'll start to see thunderstorms start to develop once again. I'll say a bit of good news. The trends in the forecast have been a downward one. So earlier in the week, we were talking rain chances anywhere from about 50 to 70% for Saturday. Now I think that's more in that 20 to 40% range. And I think the greatest coverage will be in our higher elevations and then down into southwest Montana as we get into the later evenings. So a little bit of good news, especially if you have outdoor plans, but the impacts from the storms that do develop will be the same. We're talking gusty winds 30 to 50 miles per hour, maybe some small hail, frequent lightning, and some heavy rainfall, much like we have seen the last 2 days. So as we get into Saturday evening, much the same. We'll see those showers lingering on up until about sunset. They start to taper off, and the low pressure system finally starts to exit the region. As we get into Sunday morning, we're pretty much quiet area-wide. A little bit of fog can't be ruled out once again. But watch as we get into late Sunday. Watch these clouds start to build back into Idaho. It's a short break. Here comes our next storm system. Could see another round of some isolated thunderstorms for Sunday afternoon. But watch Sunday, I'll say evening. Sunday evening into Monday morning. We're going to see another low pressure system pinwheel its way here. Showers and thunderstorms potentially into the overnight hours across west central and southwestern Montana. As this storm slowly makes its approach, and this is going to lead to more scattered, if not widespread, shower and thunderstorm activity as we head into Monday. There's a lot of question marks with how this next system is going to behave. So one option, the storm system fully moves through. It stays as a condensed low pressure system, goes into west central Montana, and we're talking about scattered to widespread shower and thunderstorm activity area wide. Could be talking beneficial rainfall. Option number two, it gets a little bit more focused. So instead of it being widespread across the area, it may be more focused into northwest and west central Montana. Really comes down to where that track is. Option number three, it starts to disperse much like the storm is doing right now. We lose a lot of that focused energy and it becomes more isolated in nature, and only a few locations get that beneficial rainfall, and it's a lot more spotty in comparison, and many areas stay dry. That'll be the type of information that'll get ironed out as we get into the rest of this weekend. I think by tomorrow evening, we'll have a better idea of what this storm's going to be looking like. Fingers crossed we can get some more widespread precipitation in here. We certainly need it. We'll take all that we can get. But that's really what we're looking at for that. Now, jumping back just a little bit into Saturday, you may have outdoor plans. You may be going to college football games. Well, let's take a look at those forecasts. We will be dealing with at least that chance for showers and storms. All of our local teams that are playing at home, being University of Montana, Montana State, and Montana Tech, all kick off at 1 p.m. So likely the biggest game of this weekend. We're talking the Grizzlies hosting North Dakota. This is a top 25 FCS matchup. We're talking temperatures at kickoff right around 70 degrees. I still think those rain chances in that 10 to 20% are going to be there. But overall, mostly clear, partly cloudy skies are expected for this game. Temperatures warming into the mid-70s overall for a September football game. I don't think you can ask for much better as long as we can avoid those thunderstorms. Taking it down into Bozeman, looking at Montana State, the Bobcats are hosting San Diego. Kickoff also at 1 o'clock. Temperatures right around 62 degrees. I think the chance of rainfall is just a slight bit higher, right around 30% for the entirety of the game. Most areas we're still going to be talking partly to mostly cloudy skies, but it may not be a bad idea to have a poncho just in case. Hopefully nobody needs it. Same story goes for the Montana game as well, but I'd rather be prepared for rain and not need it than be sitting there going, I wished I had my poncho just so I could stay a little bit drier. But overall, pretty nice on those temperatures there at 67 there as we get towards the third quarter. As for Montana Tech, we are hosting Rocky Mountain College. This kickoff is also at 1 o'clock. We're talking temperatures also in the 60s, so a very similar forecast between Butte and Bozeman. Rain chances right around that 20 to maybe 30% likelihood. And again, this still says 6, 7, 8, 9, but this is 1, 2, 3, and 4 on those forecasts. So overall, not too bad of a time frame, or at least period, with that. Now, like I was saying, we're going to see those rain chances starting to drop away. We're going to see those pick back up. Monday right now does look to be the wettest of the next 5 once we get beyond this evening. Showers and storms will likely continue into Tuesday morning, but I think as we get into the middle parts of the week, we'll start to quiet down even more. Going into the more extended forecast, let me see. There we go. So here's what it looks like. Storm rolls in late Sunday into Monday morning. Showers, a few thunderstorms, potentially area-wide are possible. By the afternoon, we'll get a little bit more instability. Could see some thunderstorms, at least a little bit more widespread. And then as we get into Monday evening and Tuesday, that low-pressure system, a little bit more progressive than the one we've been dealing with all week, starts to clear the area. Still a few showers try and linger into Tuesday afternoon. But for the most part, looks like Wednesday we're quiet. Thursday we're quiet, but then we'll have to watch as we get into Friday. Here comes another low-pressure system that might help to spark off at least a few showers and storms. Still plenty of time to watch that next storm system. So that's about everything that I had for this forecast. I'm going to go back up to our storm up into Kalispell and Columbia Falls, Hungry Horse. We'll take a look at that in a little bit more detail, see how that storm's behaving, if it's intensifying, if it's weakening. But as we're finishing this up, if you got any last-minute questions, feel free to ask those, and I answer them as best as I can. So let me jump back to radar, and we'll take another quick look at this, and then I'll start to wrap it all up. Let me pull the watch warning boxes back up. Again, this is really our only aggressive storm. We have one that's starting to intensify down here, just real quick, in the Sapphire Mountains south of Skalkaho Pass. So this is our, I'll say, second strongest thunderstorm right now. That has been trending upward. But our main story right now continues to be this one, now diving into the Flathead Valley. It doesn't look quite as intense in that single core that we were seeing earlier there towards Hungry Horse. But what this may mean is we're starting to see the air gust out of this storm. So essentially it's going from, say here, it's pushing out and moving forward. So you'll likely have a gust front right on the edge of this, and that'll bring in some stronger winds. That'll be working their way in off of the mountains, diving into Creston, diving into Evergreen, and eventually moving into Kalispell, potentially Summers, Big Fork. But really, we've seen a bit of a line develop. So we're seeing this cluster of thunderstorms stretching from Whitefish back through Columbia Falls and back into the mountains there south of Hungry Horse. This is all, again, moving to the south and west. You can see that here as I loop this. That's from about 6:15. Moving to the south, and then all of a sudden it started pushing out to the south and west. So I think at this point, unless this storm completely gusts out and falls apart, Kalispell, Creston, we are going to be dealing with some of these showers and thunderstorms over the next little bit. Impacts, if you weren't watching earlier with this storm, probably talking gusty winds 30 to 40, 45 miles per hour. We see plenty of lightning strikes in there, some brief heavy rainfall, and maybe even some small hail, though I think in comparison to what we were looking at earlier, the hail threat is a little bit lower now. The wind threat is a little bit higher in comparison. So let's go back out to the, here is our look from our Kalispell camera. Make that a little bigger. You can see the rain shafts here. You can actually see back into the mountains, but there is that front edge of that shelf cloud that I was talking about, essentially the front edge of that wind that's starting to push out. So I think we're going to be at least dealing with that chance for some strong winds moving into the rest of the Flathead Valley. We're already seeing those over towards, again, over towards Kalispell. Let's see if I can get this to focus for a second. I can see it bouncing back and forth there. It is not liking this one. Having a tough time with the focus. Let me jump out of that, that particular camera image back to radar, see if I can get it to There we go. That looks a little bit better. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Back in track. I won't put up the special weather statement box, but that continues for about another 25 minutes. So, again, just a reminder for folks that might be just tuning in. You got some stronger thunderstorms moving into Kalispell, Evergreen, Creston. We have that special weather statement in place. If you're outdoors, try and find sturdy structure, head on indoors, get away from the lightning. And in this case, where we're not talking about a really significant severe thunderstorm with 60, 70, 80 mile per hour winds, a car should be in pretty good shape. Just maybe don't park underneath trees. You could see some limbs come down. So when you get winds in that 30 to 50 mile per hour range, you could see tree limbs come down. You could start to have issues with some minor power outages. Hopefully not something we have to deal with, but that is a possibility with that. And that'll be rolling into, again, places like Kalispell probably here in the next 15 to 25 minutes, if not a little bit sooner. With these gust fronts, they can sometimes accelerate outwards and help to create at least some more issues, at least when it comes to timing. Makes the arrival of the impactful weather a little bit faster. So that's what we're going to be looking at for the next little bit. I think that might end up being probably our strongest storms of the evening, stretching in that area from Glacier back down into the Flathead Valley, down through Thompson Falls and Lookout Pass. Once we get beyond sunset, those showers and storms should start to taper off. We'll see them redevelop as we head into Saturday. We quiet down Saturday evening. Sunday, we're right back into that potential for some storms, though less in the afternoon, into the evening, and overnight into Monday. That's when we'll see better chances of those showers and storms. So I think for now I will wrap this up. I got a couple things I got to go and get completed here really quick. But tonight, tune into our broadcast at 10 o'clock for the latest news and weather updates, as well as the best highlight show around. We've got Big Sky Friday nights, week 3, with our sports team hosting all of that, and it's sure to be a good one. And then, of course, tune into our weekend broadcasts. I believe there's only 10s. There's only a 10 on Saturday, and then the special edition 9:30 and 10 o'clock shows after Sunday Night Football for this weekend. We'll have the latest news and weather updates again for our 10 o'clock show tonight, but also for those. And if you happen to get any photos of tonight's sunset, these thunderstorms that we're seeing, or your festivities heading out to some of our college football games, feel free to share those with us at nbcmontana.com/chime-in. You might see them on air or online. And I think with that, I will wrap it up. I'll spin this back around. We'll take one more look at the radar with this storm closer into, moving into Kalispell, and we'll wrap it up from there. But thank you for spending a little bit of your Friday evening with me. Have a safe rest of the evening. Have a great weekend, and I will see you all in the next one. With NBC Montana, I'm meteorologist Mitchell Combs. Actually, I was going to wrap it up. This is actually a pretty unique view. I just realized I thought that we were getting some sunshine in there. This may be sunshine, but this may actually also be dust. I just realized that, getting kicked up because of those winds. So that's another sense of the strong winds that we're seeing coming out of that thunderstorm. Just another reminder, head on indoors before this hits, because that definitely looks like a decent plume of smoke getting kicked up from some of the fields there on the eastern side of the valley. So another interesting view from this strong storm moving into Kalispell.